So this week's Torah portion, Ki Tavo, contains within it the most oft-repeated lines in the entire Torah. I know this verse by heart, and I know you know it too, because we read it every year on Passover, our most celebrated holiday. It embodies all of the essential values we come to Seder to remember and make real through our lives. Listen to these words as we read them together in this week's portion. You'll find them at the end of the portion. Pay attention. Arami oved avi. My father was a wandering Aramean. V'haya ki tavo el haaretz asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha nachala v'rishta v'shav tava v'lakachta mereshit kol pri ha'adama asher tavi me'artzecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach v'samta batena v'halachta el hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shachen shemo sham Uvata el hakohen asher yihyeh b'yamim hahem v'amarta elav higadti hayom l'Adonai Elohecha ki bati el haaretz asher nishba Adonai la'avotenu latet lanu v'lakach hakohen et atena miyadecha v'hinichu lifnei mizbach Adonai Elohecha v'anita v'amarta lifnei Adonai Elohecha Arami oved avi, vayared sham, mitzrayma, vayagor sham, bimtei ma'at, vayhi sham, lagoy gadol atzum v'rav. When you enter the land that the eternal your God is giving you as a heritage, and you possess it and settle it, you shall take some of the first fruits of the soil which your harvest from the land of the eternal your God is giving you. Put it in a basket and go and place it where the eternal your God will establish God's name. You shall go to the priest in charge at that time and say, I acknowledge this day before the eternal my God that I have entered the land that the eternal swore to our fathers to assign to us. The priest shall take the basket from your hand and set it down in front of the altar of the eternal your God. You shall then recite as follows before the eternal your God. My father was a wandering Aramean. We went down to Egypt, few in number, and sojourned there. But there we became a great and populous nation. And as powerful as this timely call to remember that once we were wanderers, and so that we know the heart of the wanderer and the refugee, there is an even deeper lesson for us to learn in the sentences that follow after these words. For welcoming the stranger is but the first example in a careful listing of those we must protect for the cause of justice. And in not so well-known conclusion, which comes after those famous words, my father was a wandering Aramean, come these words for us to read. When you set aside the full tenth of the part of your yield, in the third year, the year of the tithe, and have given it to the Levite and the stranger and the widow and the orphan, that they may eat their fill in your settlements, you shall declare before the eternal your God, I've cleared out the consecrated portion from the house, and I've given it to the Levite, the stranger, the widow, and the orphan, just as you've commanded me. I've neither transgressed nor neglected any of your commandments. The Levite, the stranger, the widow, and the orphan. Why are these particular classes of people singled out for special attention? By God's special command that we pledge each year, and with every tithe, our ongoing care for them and for their families. The orphan, the fatherless, had no one to protect them under the law. An underage child could only seek justice in biblical society through the representation of a father or another male adult who would act in the father's name. Similarly, a widow, a woman who had left her father's house under the protection of her husband and who is now gone, had no way to protect herself without a man to speak for her name. The stranger or ger was not a citizen of the land, and so they had no legal rights whatsoever. And the Levites, the tribe of Moses and Miriam and Aaron, had renounced all claim to the land in favor of temple service, so their very survival was left to the willingness of the people to support them and those in need. The Levite, the stranger, the widow, the orphan, could claim no land or wealth. They all lived on the outskirts of the law, with no real access to our system of justice. They were not able to protect themselves because they could be openly exploited. And so, here in Ki Tavo, The Torah goes beyond the simple admonitions not to take advantage of their disadvantage. We are taught that it is our special responsibility for care for them as part of the blessings of living in the land. The care for those who do not have access to justice is our justice to see done. For the prophet Micah, these verses of the Torah can be summed up in just a very few words. It's been told you, O human, what is good and what the Eternal requires of you, only to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Apply these words to our own day and the message becomes clear. For those who lack justice, seek justice on their behalf. For those who lack food, share with them the blessings that you receive. For those who have no one else to protect them, be their protectors in order that you might truly be called God's people in this land. May this be God's will, and may we be a builder of a world of justice and of peace. Amen. Please join me as we do the blessing.